Good boy. Hi, Gaye DeRusso with Majestic Rider. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Tennessee walking horses, because some people have in the mind what Tennessee walking horses are, but it can be very confusing because what they were many years ago, or what they call foundation bred or heritage bred, is different from the World Grand Champions breeding lines, where they've bred them more to be more on the pacey side for the big lick showing. So there's many different types of walking horses out there now, and so you can get ones that look more like foxtrotters and they have a shorter stride. They can be more on the trotty side versus the pacey side, and you can have ones with a smaller stride or some overstride, and you can get some with extreme overstride, which has many feet into it. I'm just doing lateral flexion. It just teaches him to give to the bit. And I teach all the horses this because it helps to set their heads and get them to understand to give to the pressure of the bit. And also, if something breaks, I can turn his head or do a one rein stop and he'll have a better idea of what I want to do. So when you get a walking horse, you're looking at walking horses, or you're like, I don't want a walking horse because they're so lanky. They're all different. So you can get one with shorter strides that aren't as lanky, and you can get ones with big strides that are very lanky. He's kind of in between. I like his gaits a lot, but when he goes slow, he is a little bit lankier, and when they go slow, they're not bred to go slow, so most people are not riding them slow. But you can feel a little bit more of like what they call a camel walk when you have one that has very big overstride. He has overstride, but compared to some of the other walking horses, it's really not that big. Okay? And then again, some will have a shorter overstride. So you'll see some motion in my body as I'm walking with him and making these circles. But again, most of the time people aren't walking this slow, so that's why they don't care so much if some of them have a camel walk. But if you're going to buy a Tennessee walking horse and you know you're going to go slow, you probably don't want one with extreme overstride, because it may bother your back because of all the back and forth motion if they do have a camel walk. The horses with the larger stride go better when they're ridden with some semi-collection. The ones with the shorter stride, yes, you can ride them on a looser rein, but the ones with the bigger stride, you kind of have to hold them together. And that's what I'm doing right now. You'll see my reins are short, my hands are in front of the bag. Now this guy will go either way, but his gaits are much nicer if he is ridden on a shorter rein. So now we're just going to serpentine. So I'm just doing all my warm-up while I'm talking to you, but you can kind of watch how he moves. So this is just his regular slow trail walk. And I'm just bending him back and forth because that's going to make him more supple and help his gaits. You'll see he has a very nice headset now. He's very calm. He's a mellow horse. He's not very spooky. And he's great. He goes out alone. He goes out in groups. He's packed a lot of beginners. And he's just a really good, honest gelding. Now, again, you'll see me going around the turn. If I wasn't holding him together, my turn wouldn't be as nice. But you're supposed to ride anyhow. So you should ride your horse around the turn and support them, especially with all that they do for us. Okay? So if you're looking for a walking horse but you have very steep terrain, then one that has a little bit shorter stride sometimes is better for you. The ones with extreme overstride can have difficulty going downhill. They're usually fine going uphill. We're going to walk over the poles, okay? But if you're on the flat, then those things won't matter so much. And you might like that big overstrider if you just got rolling hills. But the best thing is to test that walking horse and see how it does. This horse, when he's loose, does not pace. He either gaits or he trots. So he's actually very well balanced. He's not a trippy horse. And he thinks, and he's also smart, so he figures things out. All those things help. Okay? And when you're testing the gaited horses, especially the walking horses, it's good to walk them over some poles, see if they know where their feet are, because some of them don't. But you can teach them, they can get much better. But if you want to see what they naturally are like, they'll just trip over the poles if they don't know where their feet are. I'm going to go up to a flat walk. So I'm just squeezing with both my legs. I have light pressure on the reins. He gets kind of slow in the arena, so I have a stick in case I need to wave it and create more energy. So they can have many different speeds for their gaits, but this is what I'm going to use for our flat walk in this arena right now. And so you'll see his head going up and down. You'll see him overreaching some, and you'll see I don't have a lot of motion in the saddle, but I do have some back and forth. Our arena's a mess, so he might take some missteps here and there, which is not his fault. It's muddy and uneven and all sorts of stuff. And now we're just going to leg yield him over a little bit, and then we'll make more circles. So he's fun to ride, but if you have one that has extreme overstride, or you might have seen other people riding them, you might see they ride a little bit more up in their thigh like this. You can do that if there's a lot of motion in the saddle, or you're trying to free up that horse's back, okay? So you can tilt a little bit more forward, especially if they're pacey, that can help you too. Him you can ride either way, but my back is better with the back and forth motion, so I like it. But if I didn't like it, again, you can tilt forward and be more in a forward position when you're riding that Tennessee walking horse if you don't want all that motion. I guess we're not going to come down here. It's kind of muddy. So one more circle. But you are trying to, you'll see my reins are straight. You want to ride them with some contact until they understand. This horse is a great trail horse, but he didn't know all the arena stuff, so I have to support him some. I have to support him some until he gets the idea of what he's supposed to do in here. But he's doing very, very well. Okay? So you're trying to stay somewhat still. You let your body go with the motion, but you don't need to pump your arms. These horses already move their head. And since your body moves with them, your arms are already going to move, so you don't want to do this. See, he doesn't even go well. He's like, what the heck are you doing up there? So you just stay still, let your arms move with your body. So all of the walking horses should have a flat walk, but it may appear different. They'll all shake their head if they're using their body correctly. Unless they have an extreme short stride, then they might not shake it much at all. But most of them usually do. And it's a comfortable ride. And this horse out on trail going up and down hills is very sure-footed. He knows what to do. He's not trippy. Some walking horses can be because they don't pay attention to their feet. Or if they're extremely lazy or dull or stubborn, those guys can be trippy too because they're not paying attention or they don't want to do the job, okay? But I love a good walking horse, and this is the type I kind of like. They're kind of in between. It's not a huge overstride, but it's some overstride. And it's fun to ride because it's very smooth, and then he has lots of different speeds that he can give us. So when you're riding them, you're trying to practice that flat walk, and say you're training one, you want to get that flat walk, that first speed of your gait really good before you start speeding them up. You want to let them warm up, because if you're just coming out and just going fast, they're not going to warm up and use themselves as well. If you have one that's pacey, lunge it over poles every day that you can, or round pend it over poles. Use at least 4 poles, more if you can. The more you work that horse over poles, you'll take it more towards a trot, which will make its gait better, but it's also going to make it much, much more sure-footed. You've seen my horse Tilly. She's naturally gaited. She's a walking horse. a little bit shorter stride than him. But she was trippy when I got her, and she's older. She's 15, so now for 2 years I work her over poles all the time when I'm not, riding her, or I do it before I ride her. And now she hardly trips at all, and she's very sure-footed. So it does make a difference. So if your horse is pacey, you want to get a little bit more trotty. You can use those poles, and you can even make the poles closer together. If they're too trotty, you're trying to make your horse a little bit more lateral or toward the pace. And again, you might have to kind of invert your horse in the beginning to get them a little bit more towards that pace, and then you condition them and they'll get better. The footing's really bad right there. That's why you kind of see him weaving. So this is his flat walk. And again, you can sit like this because, again, he's trotty. He's not pacey. And he's naturally gated. Whoops. We got stuck in the mud there. Or you can ride a little bit like this. But you'll see people riding like this to free up that horse's back, or they're a little bit pacey. It'll help them. But you just try and see what works. So some horses it helps, some it doesn't. Let's go over this pole instead of in that muck. Okay. So now we're going to do our turn on the forehand. I'm going to use my right rein and rein, turn towards the fence. So you remember, look, and it's a little rein and it's mostly leg, and I gave him a little tap because he fell asleep. And that's the good and the bad about walking horses. He's like, let's go to sleep. So now I'm going to start with the poles again in this direction. So remember, if you're testing them, you're going to buy one, take it over poles, see what it does. And it's okay if it doesn't do the poles that great. Especially if it has a big overstride and it's never done poles, it has to figure out how to get over the poles first. But just take it into your brain how they did over it so you know. And if you're like, I need really sure-footed, I have extremely steep trails, and that horse hit every single pole when you tried it, that's probably not the one you should buy. If you want something with a shorter stride and something more aware, or something a little bit even high-spirited, because they're usually quicker with their feet. Okay, so we're going to start our flat walk again. So there he just drifted and he just wasn't paying attention. That's no big deal. You see, he hit it, but he didn't trip and he didn't lose his balance. That's different. So I'm talking about ones that aren't good with their feet. I'm talking about they're tripping over every pole, falling onto their face, or they are actually falling down. The bigger the stride, the more they're going to slide those back legs, which makes it very smooth and can be fun. But if you're riding on slick surfaces or granite and things of that nature, that sliding nature of their back legs might not be so sure-footed for you. So remember all those things. You can do things with their shoes and put some traction, but again, they are what they are. You're avoiding all the water, aren't you? So as you're riding them, just go with the motion. Let your arms go with the motion, but don't pump. And don't stare at the horse's head, which is very hard to do since their head goes up and down. Okay, but they're meant to do this. It's a fulcrum. It's counteracting and helping them balance. I think walking horses are the best ones at testing arena footing because they'll show you where all the bad footing is. They point it out like there, and it's there. Okay. But this guy's quite nice. He's fun to ride, and he's safe, okay? But with any walking horse you get, you warm it up well, and then you also teach it the arena basics because it'll make a more agile horse. And again, if it's pacey, lots and lots of poles, every day of poles. You'll see me do them, but sometimes people, even if they buy a horse from me, they don't listen to everything I say, and then they go home and they're not doing poles anymore. It's just going to help it gait better, and it's going to make it easier for you to get that gait. But they have to build the muscle, and they can't do that if you're doing it once a week. It's got to be at least 3 to 5 days a week, okay? All right, so that's his flat walk. So now Oh. Now we're going to back them up, so I just pull a little leg release, pull a little leg release, pull a little leg release, pull a little leg release. Good boy. And I'm just telling you this so if someone's interested in them, you see how I got them to back up. Most people just pull on their face. You're trying to get the horse to back up from your seat, your body position, and your leg, and then you're guiding with your hands, but you're trying not to just pull on their face. So if that's how you back up your horse, you just pull on its face. Try working it out and using your legs and your seat more, and then your hands. So we're going to stop riding, so take leg off, deep breath in. Whoa, and he just stopped. Now I'm going to look over his head, bring my body back, a little pull, leg release, pull, leg release, pull, leg release. Now this horse had no idea how to back up when he came. You would never know that because he does it so well now. Good boy. Okay? So you want to teach them everything because a lot of these horses, depending where they're coming from, don't know anything. They're very green broke because they're calm, and so people do a lot of tricks, and they do a lot of tricks to get their gait. So you got to be hyper aware of those things and teach them all the arena stuff before you start going out on the trail, so you have a horse that you can control and you have tools in your pocket that you can use. If you're going to ride one-handed, which you can, like he does neck rein, you want the rein short like this. Not a big loopy rein. These are not quarter horses. They are not going to move like quarter horses. And if you ride like this, they're not going to go as well, and you're going to get a lot more motion in the saddle. So you want a short rein. Ride with contact. Don't over-tuck their head. They're supposed to shake their head. Unless you don't like the motion, then if you tuck their head, it does shorten their stride, and they won't get as much head shake or reach. But otherwise, you're trying to let them use their head and neck some to help them with that gait, okay? And if they are doing a true flat walk and a running walk, they will have head shake. If they're not shaking their head, they're most likely doing a saddle gait, a rack, or a step pace, because I see many people say those are a running walk. Okay, we're going to do another turn on the forehand. So we're going to look left, left rein and leg. Good job. Okay, and when you're finished, you always try to ask them to put their head down. Okay? Get in the habit of that so they don't get in the habit of pulling on the bit. Okay. So now we're going to do some running walk. So you just go back to your flat walk. You don't have to do anything crazy if they're well gaited and they're trained. All you're going to do is ask them for more speed with a little bit more leg. So I'm going to squeeze with my legs. Now if you go too fast, they'll stop shaking their head. So they should still be shaking their head, and it should still feel like somewhat your flat walk. It's not a super fast gait, and he has overstride. So it might not look very fast, but he's covering ground. If you compare this to when I go around on like one of the Rockies. So you're trying to keep a light contact. Their nose can be poked out a little bit, and you're just following by allowing your arms to move with your body. Do not pump. Do not do this. It doesn't work out so well. You'll just see my arms are moving, but that's because they're just following my body. He's very, very smooth. I like this horse a lot. If I didn't have Tilly, I would keep him myself because I love walking horses. Now, some of you might not like the head shake. You know, that's up to you. A lot of the gaited horses, when they're flat walk, and many of them can do a running walk, not just a walking horse, will shake their head. But if you don't like it, you don't have to do it. You could just go to a saddle gait. Now, if anything, this horse, I've never had him hit a hard pace, even when people didn't know how to ride him. He might step pace, but that's about it. And most people aren't that lucky to find a nice horse like this. But you'll see his ears flop. He feels like he's floating on the ground now that I picked up some more speed. And he's super fun. Now I'm going to show you a couple other things, because you'll see he's still shaking his head, right? So if we want to go up to more like a rack, his saddle gait's going to be a fast speed, which is more like a rack, you'll see his head's not going to shake as much. Let me get out of the mud. Okay. So all I'm going to do is just add more leg, and I always keep a light leg pressure. But see how smooth he is? He's like riding a cushion. And he is moving. Whoever gets him is very lucky. I'm jealous myself. So he just goes, but again, if you don't know how to ride these horses, then you're not going to get that out of them. If you're riding like this, you're going to be like, this horse stinks. You know, he's doing all this stuff. He don't steer. They're not ridden to be, they're not bred to be ridden like quarter horses on a big, long, floopy rein. So this is not going to work out well for you. See? He's like, where the hell are we going? So neither are dressage horses, though we're warm bloods. There's many horses that aren't bred to be ridden on a big, long, floppy rein, but so many people want to ride them like that because you don't understand. So if you get a walking horse, know your reins need to kind of be as short as I have mine, with your hands up in front of the saddle, okay? And you got to ride with body position that is good, and you are going to have fun because they are a blast. But you got to get a good one. You got to get one that's not trippy, and you got to ride them correctly. Okay, so we're going to go back up to our running walk. So this is just our flat walk right now. So all I did was squeeze, and if he doesn't go, I just wiggle my stick. But again, that's just in the arena. On the trail, I don't need a stick with him. But in the arena, many of them get bored. Okay, so I'm going to add more leg. Now, how do you know you're in a running walk? Well, their head is still shaking. You're going faster. And if you're not sure, you just keep testing it. You just go faster. You're like, well, how fast is the running walk? Again, I said they have many different speeds. See, he has natural rhythm. Look at those ears flopping. Now, you'll see. We got to get this cruddy footing, that his head's not shaking as much. It's shaking, but not as much. So there, you definitely know I'm not doing a running walk anymore. So you just slow it. So you just slow it down, get a little bend if you're in the arena. But see, he's very willing. He's like, whatever speed you want to go, I'm all for it. So your running walk's going to have head shake. So if you're like, my horse doesn't shake its head, and you're probably going too fast. Just slow it down. Half halt, get its weight on its back end, and you'll probably have a running walk there. Okay? If you got one of the show ones, many of them are kind of step pacing. So when you do a running walk, you're going to feel a hop in their step because they're not really doing the correct gait, but it probably worked out fine if they had a long foot or a heavier shoe. So your thing is slow it down. That's not their running walk either. That's a step pace. You shouldn't have a bump in the saddle. Okay? And you want to practice your running walk for a while, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Get them into the rhythm until you get your horse's head shaking and his ears flopping. But you'll see, I'm not moving much at all. I love a good walking horse. They're just fun. Okay, so now I'm going to speed them up. Let's see what happens again. So again, it's fun, but you shouldn't ride your horse at high speeds for long, long periods of time. It's hard on them. So you can rack, you can saddle gait, which is just a slower rack. But, just do it 5, 10 minutes and then go back to their slower gaits. The flat walk they can do all day. The running walk they can do for a fair amount of time because they're efficient gaits, the same as like a foxtrot. It's bred for a reason so they could go long periods of time in a smooth gait. It was not bred for just speed. Okay? So you want to keep your horse healthy. Do those other gaits, but not super long if possible. The saddle gait's not as bad as the really fast rack or speed racking, but they can be harder on the joints. So you're trying to counteract them by either trotting in the arena or doing other things. Okay? All right, so now we're going to slow him back down and give him a little break. Now, if you have one with an extreme overstride, see, again, this isn't bad at all, but if you have one you're going like this, and that's how my horse Sundance used to be. He had a big overstride. And you get more of that camel walk and you don't like it, you can do things about it. So you can shorten up their stride by doing some things with their feet. You can roll the front toes and square the backs, or if they're foraging, you can do that too. But if you ride them when they're going slow and you ride them with more contact and hold them together, just like this, so same speed, but now I took a hold of them and I'm half halting, you'll see there's less motion. There's less overstride. So you can do things, but many times when I'm riding them, I'll ride them and gait them, and then I'll let them walk for a little bit on a looser rein, but not super long, just a couple of minutes, and then I'll pick up and go again. Because again, they will tend to get more wobbly if you're on that loose rein, and because they're so calm, some of them start just spacing out and falling asleep because they're not doing anything. And then again, your ride will get more awkward because you're going to get more of that rocking motion. Okay? All right, now I don't know if I can do a canter in here because it's so muddy, but we'll try a little bit. So I half halt, shift my weight. And what you're trying to do with the canter is just half halt every time your butt hits the saddle and slowly get it slower over time. Okay, good boy. So he has a very natural canter, but it's not overly collected yet because he's newer. And so that'll get better and slower, but the arena is really gross today. And so we're just trying to show you a little bit of it. But because he's trotty, and he also naturally gaits, he's got a very nice canter. The ones that are pacey are much harder, and you can teach them, but you have to use a lot of poles and be careful because they can get trippy when you're trying to teach them. So if you like to canter, get a gaited horse that's more on the trotty side. It'll be much easier. Okay, walk. So again, it's just too mucky. And you don't want to risk it. Any of the horses can slide, so I don't want to hurt him or anything like that. So I just wanted to show you he's more natural at it than some of the pacey ones are, okay? So I just want to tell you a little bit more about walking horses. So if you get a good one, they are amazing. If you're a trail rider, you're trying to make sure that that horse is sure-footed, because again, some were bred for the arena and they're bred to be more pacey because they're bred to wear those heavy shoes in the arena. Some of those are fine and very sure-footed, and some of them aren't. So you have to really test it to see if it's okay or not. And you want to keep it out of the pace because that's not a comfortable gait. They have very smooth gaits, but you have to learn how to ride them correctly. Gaited horses are not for everybody. If you're not going to ride well and you're going to ride on loose floppy rein, you don't want a walking horse with a huge stride that wobbles all over. You'd want something with a shorter stride or something that could go on a looser rein. But if you like riding horses and engaging them and getting them as smooth as you can, they are like riding a magic carpet. They are so much fun and cover so much ground so fast, but usually very calm horses if you get the well-bred one. So I just love them. I love him. And I showed a shorter stride one that Pushing McCurdy, and a lot of people showed interest in that horse. He was older and he was big. I liked him, but he was boring to me. He didn't have much of an overstride, which is, he was sure-footed, but I like this horse so much better, and he just has a little bit bigger overstride than that other one did, but they're both very sure-footed, and this one's more alert and awake and just more entertaining for me, and they have such funny personalities that you just love them. They're just sweet, and they'll take care of you if you take good care of them. But I think that's why, there's so much abuse, because they are so kind and sweet, and people take advantage of that like they take advantage of everything. So if you're looking for a gaited horse, don't pass over on the walking horse. Remember, there's very good ones out there. You just got to find them. You got to find good breeders and good trainers, and then they'll steer you in the right direction. But if you're going to the rescues or you're buying the ones that are out of the show arena, you got to be very careful, especially if it did the big lick. You got to make sure that it's not walking on its fetlocks in the back and it hasn't been abused, because those horses can be very difficult, especially for beginner people, because they're scared and then they're not as coordinated and they can have major problems. Right? All right, remember, like and subscribe, and I hope that helps.